ॐ नमो नारायणाय ॐ नमो नारायणाय
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रं धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणं वन्दे रम्यजामातरं मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रं धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणं वन्दे रम्यजामातरं मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः। Probably after a gap of about 6 months, we are restarting what is known as Anusandhanam of the Mumuksupadi, which is authored by Acharya and wonderfully commented upon by Swami Manavana Mamuni. In fact, I think the Mumuksupadi is one of the premier most works a Sri Vaishnava has to know, because the most important aspect of the three rahasyas, the Ashtakshara Mahamantra, Dvaya Mantra and the Charma Shloka is we have to chant it along with constantly meditating upon its meaning. Because Ramanujacharya is instructed by the Supreme Lord Ranganatha himself in the Gadyatrayam as Dvayam Arthanusandhanena Saha Sada Evam Bhakta. You continuously keep chanting the Dvaya Mahamantra along with contemplating on its meaning. And you do it continuously. Until when? Until you leave this mortal coil, or until you leave this body. So this is a sacrament or this commandment. This is given to us by Lord Ranganatha himself. So if it is given to Ramanujacharya, it applies to all of us. So here in the Gadyatraya he says, Dvayam Arthanusandhanam. So Mantra Ratna is, the Dvaya is known as Mantra Ratna. And Tirumantra, which we have already studied, is known as Mantra Raja. And as we have seen earlier, as mentioned by Swami Acharya himself, the Mantra Ratna is nothing but an expansion of the Mantra Raja. Here we have two sentences, or the mantra consists of two components in the form of two sentences. Shriman Narayana Charanau Sharanam Prapadye is one sentence. And Srimate Narayana is the second sentence. So it is a little bit rare that in such type of mantras you have two sentences. But each mantra has its own uniqueness. And there is nothing wrong if there are two sentences or two. One single mantra consists of two components in the form of two sentences. And if a person wants to chant the mantra Raja because it is smaller in size, only 8 syllables, it is easier to do. But here, as it is going to be mentioned in this sutra, the role of Shri or Goddess Mahalakshmi is very much evident as what we call her as a Purushakara in Sanskrit. That means she is always at hand to recommend the case of this Jivatma, that is me or you or every individual soul in this world, to the Lord. So many a times what happens in the ordinary world, when somebody has to do something, somebody is expected to do something, the boss or the person who is involved will say, you fix the responsibility. So unless you fix the responsibility on a person, that person will not do, though he may be capable of doing something. So though even in Om Namo Narayana, that is the Tirumantra, the Mantra Raja, the role of Shri or Goddess Mahalakshmi is evident. There it is actually mentioned in a cryptic manner, whereas in this mantra, it is mentioned in a very outwardly manner, and it is mentioned in such a manner that, explicit manner, and it is mentioned in such a manner that she cannot escape the responsibility. So that is why Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam. Srimate Narayana. So Sriman Narayana, so God, the Lord Narayana, who is consisting of Shri. Consisting of Shri as what? Several roles Shri plays as far as Lord Narayana is concerned. That is going to be explained in due course. So we fix the responsibility of protecting ourselves by requesting Goddess Mahalakshmi to be present in the entire process. So she plays several roles, as I mentioned. For example, she is the Mother Divine of all of us. And she is the consort of the Supreme Lord Narayana. So she has to play, that is why it is mentioned as Vartavinude Padakayam Prajenude Tuttilayam Vidade Rekum Mata Vaipole. The mother, she plays the role, a dual role, that is, she plays the role of a mother, and also she plays the role of a wife of her consort Lord. And that is fixed here. And that is what is being mentioned in this sutra. I'll read the sutra now. So I'll come back from the earlier sutra. Dvayat kadhikari akincanyamam ananyagatitvamam udayavan ivairandam prapanna paritranattile shunnom idil murkuttal periya pirattiyarai முன்னிட்டு ஈஸ்வரன் திருவடிகளை உபாயமாக பத்துகிறது. So generally, the fifth sutra is Jayatak Adhikari Akincanyamam Aranyagatitvam Dayavan. So in English we use a particular word called target audience, or the person to whom something is addressed to. And another definition given in the Shastras for the word Adhikari is Karmajanya Phalaswami. So there are several examples given when we read the certain Vedic injunctions. We easily understand the concept of Adhikari. More than explaining the concept itself, when we read, see the example, we understand it easily. So there is a sentence in the Vedic parlance where it says, Chitraya jeta pashukavaha. If a person is desirous of getting copious rains, because there have not been any rains at all for last, the place where he resides is encountering severe drought. So he wants somehow or the other for rain to come. So this is known as Karirya Vrishtikamo eti. So if he is Vrishtikama, he is intending to get rains, then what happens? He has to perform a particular yajna or yaga called Kariri. Chitraya ajeta pashukama. A person wants to have lot of cattle, because in those days, possessing the number of cattle used to be the mark of a very rich man. So one great saint has explained how cattle was the symbol of prestige and wealth in those days. Because in Ramayana also it says, Vidyate Goshu Sampanna. So wealth resides in cows. How is it? It's a very big topic. I will not go into the details. Even in the Mahabharata, as a precursor to the Mahabharata war, there is a parva, Upaparva called Gograhana Parva, where the cattle are tries to take away the cattle of the land that belongs to Pandavas. It's called as Gograhana Parva. That is when Arjuna actually gives up his what do you call it? He's actually disguised. Yeah, he gives up his disguise and he dons his original role, and he actually defeats the Kauravas, and he brings back the cows belonging to the King Virata. That is when you have that King Virata's son, who is known as Uttara Kumara, and he doesn't know how to fight, etc. It's a very beautiful story. But why would anybody take away the cows? That is explained very, very well in that context. So in those days, possessing a number of cattle was a mark of prestige and mark of wealth. So Chitrakamaha, Chitraya ajeta Pashukama. Pashukamaha means a person desirous of having lot of cattle, he should perform Chitra. So that means the Adhikari or the target audience or the person who is fit to perform Chitra Yaga is a person who is desirous of attaining lot of cattle. Karirya Vrishtikamo. Vrishtikama means desirous of attaining copious rains. Putrakamaha Putreshtya. So Putrakameshti. Dasharatha performed Putrakameshti, we understand. So what is that? That is Putrakama. He is desirous of attaining the son or progeny. Similarly, who is the Adhikari for Dvaya? Who is the person who is fit to chant the Dvaya mantra? Dvayat Adhikari Akincanyamam Ananyagatittamam Mudayavan. So two aspects, Akinchanaha and Aranyagatihi. So this another very important aspect that is to be noted here is that Swami Manavada Mami very beautifully explains. She says, Adavade Siddhopaya Varana Pratipadakamana Dvayat Kadhikari Akinchanaha Agatihi Tvamevopaya Bhuto Me Bhava Innum Akinchano Ananyagati Sharanya Innum Uganam Vavadiyen Innum Sulluhirapadiye Akincanyamam Aranyagatitvam Ahira Virandum Udevan Yengai. So this Dvaya is in the form of Siddhopaya Varana. That is requesting the Siddhopaya. Siddhopaya, I have explained this earlier, very briefly I will explain it. These nuances are mentioned only in the Sri Vaishnava tradition. It's not about boasting or something like that, but it is in reality, and I have asked many of my fellow devotees, has anybody dealt with such concepts in your philosophy or in your sampradaya? And I have not actually come across. They have told we have not seen that these concepts are discussed in any detail or in any, even as a passing reference. So only in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya you have these two concepts of Siddhopaya and Sadhyopaya. So Siddhopaya is, what is Sadhyopaya? Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, these which are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. These are all Sadhyopayas, that is, they are to be achieved hereafter. So I will give an example which will illustrate this in a nice manner. So now you have to cross the river from one bank to the other bank. So if you have to cross the river, you need a raft or a boat or something like that. So where is the raft? There is no raft. So you have to go there, go to some place and get some wooden logs, then you see whether it is a log that floats on water. Then you have to tie it together in a particular manner, and then after preparing the raft, you have to put it on water and test it. And then you have to have a, what is that, rowing instrument in the form of a, whatever you call it. And then you have to sit in the raft and then you have to proceed. So Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are all like that. You have to first prepare the raft or prepare the upaya, that is the means of crossing the river. And then you have to sit in it and then you have to proceed and ultimately reach the other side of the river. So that is Sadhyopaya. Because it is Sadhya means it has to be created. And then you have to use it. But the Supreme Lord is like Siddhopaya. So if you want to cross the river, already there is a wonderful boat. And that is ready to take you to other side. All you have to do is you have to go and sit in the boat and the boat will take you to the other side. But the question might arise as whether it is ready, whether it is so easy. It is relatively easier. That's what we can say. So upaya means. Sadhya means the means itself is sadhya means, which essentially denotes the concept that you have to create the means and then use it. That is sadhyopaya. Whereas the means is ready to help you go to the other bank. So that is siddhopaya, that is the Supreme Lord. So siddhopaya varana rupamana dvayamantram. This dvayamantra is, it's just like you request the siddhopaya to just go forward and take you to the other side of samsara, or help you transcend this world of transmigration, which is consisting of births, deaths, and so many miseries. One thing that is to be noted is, unless a person is deeply desirous of overcoming this samsara and attain moksha or liberation, the Lord will not come to help you. So Siddhopaya, ultimately you have to surrender to the Lord and say, "Oh Lord, please protect." If you don't do that also, He will not protect you. But then that may result in some difference of opinion between the Jnanacharya Sampradaya and Vadagali Sampradaya. Both are true in different contexts. In the beginning, unless you ask for it, you will not get it. So even that asking should not be done. That is mentioned in the Jnanacharya Sampradaya at the highest level. Because it says, Pitavakka Putran Kayyedittu Vanguma. So will a young boy go to his father and say, "Oh, father, please protect me, I am your son"? Isn't it the responsibility or the onus of protecting it rests with the father, not the son? Why should will the young boy of 2 or 3 year old boy, will it worry about its protection? But there is a slight issue which we need to address. This is Kannacharya Sampradaya is very much to 200% correct. But when the aspirant of liberation is totally convinced and dedicated to all the 24 hours, he is dedicated to the Supreme Lord, then he need not even ask. So at the highest level, Kannacharya Sampradaya is correct. But that cannot be applied to ordinary people. So for ordinary people, they have to actually say, Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye Srimati Narayana. So they have to request the Supreme Lord that please say. So that way there is not much of a difference, or there is no clash between the two views as I see. And this is mentioned to me by my Acharya. So anyway, Siddho Upaya Varana. So what is the meaning of Akinchanya and Ananyakatitva? Two aspects. One is Upayantara Rahityamahira Akinchakatitvam. So one is I do not have any other means other than you. This has to be made very clear. And then Rakshakantara-rahityamana ananyakatitvam. There are several other deities, so I can approach them also. No, that is also not permitted. Because one very important aspect is the ananyarhatva concept is very important as far as any issue connected with the Supreme Lord. Only when it becomes ananyarha, the Supreme Lord will take it. That is his nature. You cannot question it. So that is why in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Putana was ordered by Kamsa to kill Lord Krishna, by giving her milk, giving her breast milk, which was mixed with poison. It is mentioned that Lord Krishna consumed that milk with poison with great happiness. So though he killed her, he granted moksha. And it is mentioned that Sastanyam tad vishasam mishram rasyamasi jagadguru. So it is said that Lord Krishna enjoyed consuming the poisonous milk of Putana because it had that one greatest quality of ananyarhatva. So she came with the intention, single-minded intention of giving that poisonous milk to Krishna alone and no other boy or no other child. So even without her knowledge, the ananyarhatva got embedded into that intention. And therefore what happened? It became so enjoyable for Lord Krishna. So if you say this Atma it belongs to my wife, it belongs to my children, it belongs to the Lord also, if you say, the Lord will not come near. So it has to be ananya. So even when you surrender to the Lord, you have to say, I don't know Jnana Yoga, I don't know Bhakti Yoga, I don't know Karma Yoga. I think you only are the sole person who can take me, and I surrender to you only. So upayantaras are the different upayas like Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. They are all done away with because we ask the Supreme Lord himself to protect us. And then second aspect is ananyarhatvam, ananyagatitva. That is akinchanya and ananyagatitva. That is, you alone approach the Supreme Lord Narayana alone and not Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, or Indra, or somebody else. Because only Lord Narayana is eligible to give moksha. Moksha mitchet janardana. It is universally accepted. So there is a saying in Sanskrit, Harogyam Bhaskaradikcheti. If you want to have good health, approach Lord, the sun, Lord Surya.
Bhuti Mitched Dhutashana. If you want to have prosperity, material prosperity, approach Lord Agni. Jnanam Maheshwaradichi. If you want to attain Divya Jnana, divine knowledge, approach Lord Shiva. Ultimately, that will come to Lord Vishnu only, that's a different thing. But when you have access directly to Lord Vishnu, why do you go to Lord Shiva? And then take a circuitous route. Mokshamiche Jana. This is universally, even Shaivas accept it. So mokshamiche Jana. If you are desirous of attaining moksha, you go. So ananyarhatvam, ananyagatitvam. So these are the two most important aspects required for a Sri Vaishnava who wishes to engage in the Dvaya Mantra. And it cannot be mentioned in clearer terms than this. Akinchanaha ananyagatihi tvameva upaya bhuto me bhavayannam Akinchano ananyagati sharanya innum Puhalon Nilladiyen Unnadikkidaman. So Lord Nammadvar, Swami Nammadvar also says, I have no other refuge other than you, and therefore I seek refuge in you. In the sixth centum of the Thiruvayamuli. Endrum Sholluhirapadiye Akinchanyamam Ananyagatitvam Ahira Virandum Udayavan Yengai. So this is the person who is fit to engage in the Dvaya Mantra. Iva Irandin Veshamuntan Yengane Yen Arulichai Hirar. So what are the further details? Iva Irandum Yendu Todangi Yadavadi Upayantararahityamahira Akinchanyatin Veshamum Rakshakantararahityamahira Ananyagatitvanim Veshamum Prapanna Paritranamahira Prabandhatile Suspashtamahachunam Adire Kandakulvadi. So further details of this Akinchanya and Ananyagatitva have been mentioned in the work Prapanna Paritrana. Please refer to that work there, because in those days it was very important. To give a very modern example, don't mistake me. Today you have this cut and paste or copy paste facility. So you can copy paste anything and everything as far as computer is concerned. And most of our documents are in computers, so it is easy to copy and paste. But in those days, committing something to writing was a very, very difficult task. And I can give a lecture of 1 hour on that aspect, but I will not go into that now. So I will just mention it. It is very difficult to write something on a palm leaf as they used to do in those days, nearly 700 years back. So what he has mentioned is, I have mentioned this in detail in the work called Prapanna Paritrana. Please refer to it there. So he very simply says that and goes for. Then I can, if you require more details about this, I think for the timing this much is enough. If you require more details, I can refer to Prapanna Paritrana and tell you if there are some more very important aspects. So we come to the 7th sutra. Ini dvayat vakyartham arulichai hirar idil murkutal periya piratyare munnitte Ishwaran tiruvadigalai upayamaha pattu hiradu. So hereafter he is going to explain the meaning of the 2 sentences that constitute the Dvaya Mahamantra. So idil murkutal, that is the first unit. Sriman Narayana Charanau Sharanam Prapadye is the first component or the first unit. Srimate Ramana, Srimate Narayana Namaha is the second unit. So that is explained by Swami Manavana Mamani in this manner. Adavade Indadvayatil Purva Khandattale. So Purva means the earlier, Khanda is unit. So there is another interpretation of the word Dvaya, because this mantra consists of 2 units. That is why it can be called as Dvaya also. Dvaya means that which has 2 units.
அதாவது இந்த துவயத்தில் பூர்வ கண்டத்திலே ஸ்ரீமத் என்கிற என்று பெரிய பிராட்டியாரை முன்னிட்டு ஸ்ரீமத் முன்னிட்டு நாராயண சரணம் என்று ஈஸ்வரன் திருவடிகளை சரணம் பிரபத்யே என்று உபாயமாக பத்துகிறது. The meaning of these sentences are you approach the Supreme, the feet of the Supreme Lord. This is very important. Sriman Narayanam Sharanam Prapadye is not mentioned here. I beseech the Lord Narayana, or Lord Narayana consisting of Goddess Mahalakshmi. No. I beseech the lotus feet of Lord Narayana consisting of Goddess Mahalakshmi. So Sriman Narayana Charanau Sharanam Prapadye, not Sriman Narayanam Prapadye. This is a very unique and very subtle aspect which is very difficult. I will not mention it in greater detail. Why always we say, I bow down to your feet? Why not I bow down to you? Of course, we say, I bow down to you. But in the Sri Vaishnava tradition, always we say, I bow down to your feet. And in the another very important aspect is, this can be enjoyed by persons who know Tamil well. There is a separate jargon used by Sri Vaishnavas while mentioning something. And I am sure Keshavacharya ji can very easily identify and understand it. So in Sri Vaishnava parlance, we don't say Saptacha. Have you eaten? Or to put it in a very ordinary term, did you have your grub? Or something like that. In slang, I think you ask like that. Had your grub? Or something like that. No. Saptacha, no. Amudu Shairacha. So when you offer something to the Lord, we call it as Amudu Shaihiri. Amudu Shairacha. So Amudu Shaihiri means the literal meaning is, have you made it into nectar or ambrosia? Amudu means amrita, which means ambrosia or nectar. It bestows divinity or supernatural powers, or a human being becomes divine when he consumes ambrosia, as we all know. So that which bestows immortality on a person is known as amrita or ambrosia. So, when you actually offer it to the Lord, it is called as, the Lord will convert the ordinary food into amrita or ambrosia by seeing it and symbolically consuming it. So the Lord will not actually consume any portion directly in a physical form. That is why it is mentioned is Deva Drishtva Tripyanti. So by merely keeping the dish that is to be offered to the Lord in front of the Lord and then requesting him to consume it, that itself will make the ordinary food it will convert it into ambrosia or amrita. But there is also a very wonderful story. People may believe it or not, it's a very difficult thing how to explain it. Because once I will narrate it, because when I was young, I was narrated the story by my mother. And it seems, I don't know, my mother used to tell me that I used to cry when I listened to this story. So once a person who was an archaka or a pujari or a person who offers worship in a temple, he asked his son that on a particular day he could not go to perform the Tiruvaradhanam or perform the ritual worship. So he asked his son to go and offer the Tiruvaradhanam to the Lord and also offer the Naivedyam or the Prasadam. So then what happened? The boy
boys the thought that Lord will physically, literally consume some portion of the prasad. So then he asked, what should I do? He asked his father, what should I do when I have to offer? He said that you close your eyes and with all your, from the bottom of your heart, with all your good intentions, you request the Supreme Lord to come and partake the food. So if you do so, the Lord will come and partake the food and then you can come back. So then the boy thought that the Lord will physically partake, so some portion of the food he will, just like we eat. So suppose there is one small vessel full of rice. When we consume it, about half of it or 3/4 of it will be consumed. So it will, that portion of the rice will get empty. So the boy went and offered all he did, Arghya, Padya, Achamaniya, all the asanas, Alankarasana, Snanasana, that is first Mantrasana, Alankarasana, Snanasana, Alankarasana, then Bhojasana. And he closed his eyes and said, please, O Lord, please. He mentioned chanted all the shlokas. And he asked the Lord to consume the food. Then after 5 minutes, he saw that the food, whatever portion was filled in the vessel, it was like that. Then he thought, suppose nowadays, generally what happens if we are angry with somebody, if I am angry with some family member, what will I say? I will not have lunch today. That generally we do like that. Or some people do like that. So this boy thought, why is the Lord not consuming any food? Whatever food, the amount of food that I had brought and prepared, it is like that only. Then, oh Lord, please, please consume, please consume. So he is begging the Lord to consume. Even then the Lord did not listen, it seems. Then what happened? The boy said, if you don't consume, then how will I say that I have offered this food to you? What will my father say? So he started crying. The boy started crying. Why are you doing like this? What will I tell my father? How will I answer my father? He will scold me that I have not performed my duty honestly and sincerely. Please consume, please consume. So it is said that then the Lord directly consumed some portion of it. And then the boy went back to his home. And his father could not believe what happened. Then there are 2 or 3 versions, let us not worry about it. But he could not really believe because he never had such an experience. There is also another story in one of our ancient works, where once there was a Brahmin residing on the banks of the Ganga. And a woman used to bring milk to his house from the other side of the Ganga. Then 2 days, suddenly, the woman did not turn up. And this person, without milk is one of the essential commodities. Without milk, what can we do? He was put to great trouble. Then the 3rd day, the woman came. Then the Brahmin scolded her, why did you not come for the last 2 days? Without milk, how can we sustain ourselves? Then she said, no, sir, there was a big... there are a lot of floods in the Ganga. So how can I cross the Ganga? Even the boats are not moving from one side to the other. How can I come? It was so, the floods were, the river is in spate. So how can I cross the Ganga? Then it seems that, if that is the case, then why don't you chant the Lord now, the name of Lord Krishna, and walk on the river, walk on the water. You actually can walk on the water by chanting the name of Krishna with all your heart. And if you do that, even if the river is in spate, you can cross it and come. That's what he told as a matter of fact. Then after a month, there were even heavier floods than what had come earlier. And this woman was on time. She said, sir, please take me. Then the Brahmin was astounded, it seems.
Oh, how did you come? There is so much flood. The river is in such a such state. How could you cross the river and come? We are even afraid to go near the river because the force is so fast. The river is moving. Then she said, "What, sir? You only had taught me how to cross the river. You told me by chanting the name of Krishna, you can cross the river. That's how I did, and I have come here and I am before you." This Brahmin had even forgotten that he had mentioned that to them, because he just mentioned it as a matter of fact. He didn't really believe. Then he said, "Oh, is it? Let me try, he said. And he came there and he said that since he did not believe in what happened, he actually got drunk. But then how did it happen that this woman did it? So that is where the level of our having faith in a particular thing resides. If you are totally faithful, if your faith is to the maximum possible level, automatically things will happen. How it happens? There is also, we can explain this scientifically also. How can a person walk on water? But that's a different thing. That is not, it's a very deep issue. I will not go into that now. But physically, it can be made possible despite laws of science being there. So in Karnataka, in many places in India, I don't know whether you have heard about it, people walk on the fire even today. So huge logs will be burnt, and there will be it is literally fire only. But not one person. Hundreds of people walk on the fire and come to the other place, and nothing happens to them. Even today, we are seeing it happening. Even in Mysore, in the place where I work, in the college where I work, behind that college, once in a year, that festival takes place. And I have seen people, even today it happened, not one person. Hundreds of people, they walk on the fire and come to the other side. And not 2 or 3 steps, they walk about 20 to 30 steps. What can science explain? Why is their feet not burnt? Why don't they? Even if we take a small portion of fire, this thing on our hand, it will start burning, and we will have the burning sensation. We cannot bear it even for one moment. But how do they cross the fire 20 steps and come, or 20 or 30 steps? Even yesterday I saw a recent video where it happened. In many places in India it happens. So psychologically what happens? So it is beyond the realm of what you have in the laws of physics. That means the laws of physics don't work in that context. So that means you can say that scientifically explain the limitations of science. But we have the Mumuksupadi or all the Vedantic texts that we study are mainly intended to know that there is a metaphysical world which is beyond the physical world, where the laws of these physical laws or the laws of physics that are prevalent in this world don't work. Even the existence of God, can physics prove the existence of God? To some extent, you can prove it, of course. That is what the Nayayikas or Tarkikas do. They give reason and say, based on this, you can accept that there is somebody beyond us, who is the creator of this, there exists a creator, or there exists a force, which transcends these things and which is divine. That much you can say from the point of view of physics also. But there is much more. That is why in the Purusha Sukta it says, Padosya Vishwabhutani Tripadasya Amritam. The entire universe or the galaxy or whatever you call it, is only 1/4 of the portion. Physically, if you say
only 1/4 of the divine thing. And the divine is 3/4 of what you can see or imagine or even fathom. Also. So here, when you say Goddess Mahalakshmi, where she is, how she is it all not something? Are you not floating in the utopian world? No, it's not like that. It is possible for human beings to understand and experience all these things in a metaphysical plane, not in this physical plane. Only when you believe in that, and for that you have to have a firm belief that what is being mentioned is honest, sincere, and not to take us for a ride or something like that. And as practical achievers, we have the Alvars and the Acharyas who mentioned these things to us. So when all those, you respect all those things, then only all this will make sense. Otherwise, when you say Goddess Mahalakshmi is there, she will assist the Supreme Lord Narayana to take into his fold this Jivatma, etc. Are you not speaking something that is totally meaningless? No, it's not like that. It is totally meaningful when you have some realization and you can verify all these things by means of realization in a different plane altogether. Anyway, Narayana Charanau என்று ஈஸ்வரன் திருவடிகளை சரணம் பிரபத்யே என்று உபாயமாக பத்துகிறது. So the previous unit or the first unit says, I beseech the divine lotus feet of the Lord, which is associated or which consists of Goddess Mahalakshmi. That is the meaning of the first unit. That is Sriman Narayana Charanau Sharanam Prapadye, as the sole means of attaining moksha. And Uttarakhandattale Srimate என்று பெரிய பிராட்டியாரும் அவனுமான சேர்த்தியிலே நாராயணாயா என்று என்கிற சதுர்த்தியாலே கைங்கரியத்தை அர்த்திக்கிறது என்கை. நமஸ்து கைங்கரிய விரோதி நிவர்த்தி பிரதிபாதகமாகியாலே அடிமையை இருக்கிறது என்ற இதிலே அந்தர்பூதம். Srimate Narayanaaya Namaha. So what does the second unit mean? It means that I bow down to the Supreme Lord Narayana, who is always eternally associated with Goddess Mahalakshmi. And what does the word Namaha essentially signify? I will engage in all types of services to the Supreme Lord. Because ultimately what we want to do is engage in the eternal service of the Supreme Lord, by which we attain fulfillment. So here also the question rises, even because the Mayavadins ask a question, it seems very difficult to be answered. Even when you go there, in Vaikuntha you are engaged in servitude. And servitude is always associated with misery. This question has been answered very well in the Tirumantra Prakarana. Once again, it can be answered in detail if you want me to answer it separately. So we will conclude our session today here. Any questions are there, you are welcome to ask. I hope by the grace of God it will continue to its logical conclusion. I thank all of you for reassembling here, and I hope you could appreciate the greatness of the works of Lelokacharya and also Manohan. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, please.
So, Swami, you were mentioning about that both all Sri Vaishnavas, we should be requesting the Lord to protect us and to save us. And we should surrender to his feet, of course. But the Tenachara Sampradaya is saying that actually the request if we feel that the Lord is going to save us, there's no need for requests. Just like the boy who goes to his father for protection, he knows that his father loves him and will protect him. So if he asks the father for protection, that it seems useless, because he knows the father will protect him. Only if you don't know somebody will protect you will you ask for the protection. But still,
So what is the question?
The question is, I mean, so there's a slight difference between the attitude
Yes,
of
the difference is resolved when you have that, when the realization has dawned upon you that you are his property or you belong to him totally, then what happens? You become like the Malva. That's all. So you are totally dedicated and you are immersed in his worship or in his kainkariya or whatever it is. Then of course you need not ask.
So it seems practically.
But when that stage is reached, we cannot ask also, because already you are with him. So at that stage, it is true. But in the beginning, then the question is, why did Nammalvar ask? Many places he performed Sharanagati. And he says, please protect me, don't leave me. So he says, Mayam Shayyel Ennayum. He says, I swear on Goddess Mahalakshmi that it is your duty to protect me. If you don't protect me and put me in the realm of Maya, I will not survive. So it's a very fine dividing line. So both that way you have to ask Varanam. Varana means you request the Supreme Lord to protect. So in the beginning, yes, you need to protect, but if you at the highest level, then you realize you cannot do anything at all except being immersed in the servitude of the Lord. At that stage, of course, you don't need to say anything. It becomes the onus is on him to protect.
I'm always trying to understand why the Deshika Sampradaya, why the Vadagalais have this idea of doing Bharanyasa in the end of life. It seems to me, as soon as you understand about property, you should surrender to the Lord and you should ask for his.
There are some issues there. So earlier what they used to do is they used to perform Samashanam in the beginning, and Bharanyasa would be done later in the life. That is when they are what we call as Pakvata, that is when they are mature enough. But nowadays, see, everything Samashanam or Bharanyasam, everything has become a mere ritual. Though in principle it's a very high practice of a very high order. Today it has been reduced to a ritual. Therefore, in a way, people who get it done or who do it, they also, with due regards, we are not engaging in deriding any individual person, any acharya or shishya. But like everything has lost its spirit in the world today, these practices also, their spirit is largely lost. But when the spirit is not there, why do you perform? The question might come. No. Even if the spirit is lost, we have to perform it even as a mere ritual, because someday or the other you might have a question in your mind and it will lead you to the reality. So even though now today, Gayatri Japa, for example, the Sandhyavandanam that we perform, the father who has to initiate his son to the Gayatri mantra, before he does it, it is mentioned that he should chant it 30,000 times to make him eligible to teach it to his son. And after teaching it, he has to chant along with his son 30,000 times. And yesterday I met a senior scholar in Melkote, Arya Sri Rama Sharma Swami. He told minimum you have to chant the Ashtakshara Mahamantra 8,000 times a day if you have to give it as Upanisha to somebody. So I don't know how many acharyas are doing, but if you do it 8,000 times, definitely your whole outlook will change. but I am sure. But of course, that doesn't mean that we don't respect some persons. Some basic what good rest still continues in these rituals. But when you do it with all the real fervor, when you engage, see, this proceeding in the spiritual path is a full-time job, as I see it with my experience of what I have studied. Whether it is the path of yoga or bhakti yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, etc. So it's not like you do something for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you engage yourself in something totally different throughout the day. These are all full-time endeavors. Today, the situation in the world has changed so much. How can you do it? So you do, even if you are doing 10 minutes, yes, do it. Don't leave it. Then we will see how to expand it. That is the mindset with which we have to do these things. Chedramanujetyesha chaturakshari kamavastham prapadyante jantavo antamadrishah punyambhoja vikasaya papadvanta cha Shrimanāvirabhūt bhūmau Rāmānuja divākarah Trinīkrita virinchārirankusha vibhūtayah Rāmānujapadāmbhoja samāśrena shālinah.
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भाम् नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
ॐ नमो नारायणाय ॐ नमो